Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in, come in, come in. This is Tamika's Den. I am Tamika, and this is American Horror Stories. All right, this is a review recap for American Horror Stories, Season 2, Episode 2, Aurora. Okay, and so we got our good sis in here, all right, Miss Gabby Sidri. I hope I'm saying her daggone name right, but we know her as Queenie in American Horror Story, and of course from Empire. And so I'm like, okay, where this gonna be going? What are we gonna be getting for episode 2? All right, this was all right. It was okay. It did not turn out the way that I thought it was, but we had some interesting stuff going on. So we started out the episode with this lady that's helping her daughter with her homework, and all of a sudden she goes to the door, and we have a guy, basically busting in with a daggone gun. And she's yelling and screaming or whatever have you. But come to find out, this is basically an ad, that is for Aurora. And it's showing how you can get the peace of mind you deserve with this new security system, right? And we see that this lady is basically in the store looking at it. And this guy is saying that, this is a really good buy. And she's like, no, it seems like it's a little paranoid. I don't know if I need it. And he was like, maybe, 50 years ago. But when somebody is knocking at your door this day and age, it's a little different. Back in the days, you probably would have been like, oh, hey, come on in if somebody knocked at your door at 6, right? But now we got a lot of crazy stuff going on. And so, you got to be protecting yourself. And so he basically, seems to have got a sell from her, all right? She's like, yeah, maybe you do have a point there. So she go ahead and put it in her cart. Excuse me. So now, we see her going home or whatever the case may be. And we see that it is, looks like a gated community and security is driving through, whatever have you. And so when she gets home, she's basically unpacking everything. And her husband is like, what is this? And she's like, Aurora. And he's like, yeah, but why did you go and purchase, a $200 camera when, we basically done moved to this gated community where we have security and we're paying extra with our rent for that. And, she was saying it was on sale. And he was like, really? $200 is a sale? She was like, well, they're really popular now. Everybody has one. And he was like, all right, babe, we going to have to go ahead and, get this together. He was like, you wanted to move? I moved it because there was no, crime here. He was like, we write a check to homeowners association and all of that kind of stuff. Like I said, for the security guards, the gate and all of that. And he was like, how much more secure do you need to feel? He was like, I know that you have anxiety, but this is going to have to, stop somewhere. And so she's saying that she's sorry, if she's making him feel guilty or whatever for having to, have them move, and he has a longer way to go to work and all of that kind of stuff. And he's telling her like it's not about that. That he understands that she even has some past issues from childhood. And, he knows that she has PTSD, anxiety or whatever. So she says, listen, he was like, it's also about the fact that you went over our budget. We already cutting it close as it is. So she was like, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to make it right back and I'm going to replace it and I'll have us back on track. Because apparently she has this on our business that she does. And she's like, she's going to about to get that up and running. And she'll have some sales coming in from that. So, he's pretty much like, okay, cool. He was like, he's sorry if it sounded insensitive and, they gonna do what they gotta do. So basically, we're seeing moving in, unpacking all the boxes, doing they painting, they decorating, whatever different stuff to that nature. And he was telling her some saying that he have, and she was like, look, I don't need you to be my therapist. I just need you to be my husband. And he was like, okay, cool. Then she was super excited because she finally did make a sale. She, as soon as she started it up, she was like, oh, honey, I made a sale. He's like, really? And congratulating her. So we get a flashback because he did mention that she has something traumatizing that happened to her as a kid. And we're seeing that somebody came through the window of her house when she's a little girl. And they basically had this rabbit mask on. And they, was like this, telling her to shush. And she just kind of put her head under the covers and was scared. And then all we hear is a scream and some gunshots. And I'm assuming that's her parents, and you hearing like the father saying, "Who the hell are you?" And so basically, she snaps out of it, and, we get to see that the husband is putting up the Aurora thing on the door. And so, pretty much they trying to get settled in and, go along with things as normal, right? And she's fixing the house one way, and then he's kind of coming behind her and changing some of the things a different way. Like if, he has to have a certain order to stuff, he don't necessarily like the way that she's doing it. And, we just kind of getting a back and forth between her working in the office, cleaning off the jewelry, taking pictures of the jewelry. This is the things that she sells online. And so, her Aurora starts going off. And she's looking at it because it says that it's motion at the door. And she's like, "Can I help you?" And, basically you hear the person like, "Yeah, I'm here for the home invasion. It starts around 3. So come to find out, it's her husband. And she like, "I told you to take this seriously." And he was like, well, didn't it work? And he said it was a successful run through. And so he was like, except for one thing, you never open the door for somebody that's saying they hear from a daggone, home invaders. So then she's like, "Oh, you got me." And, they kissing or whatever. And she start running, and he's basically chasing after her like, "Don't you run from me," or whatever. So then he apparently gets this alarm where he's like, "Oh, shoot, I forgot. I called a department meeting." And she's like, "Today?" And then he was like, "Yeah." He was like, he have to hurry up and get back to the office. And so she's like, "Okay." So he basically, leaves out, and then she's there by herself. And so he was telling her not to wait up and that he'll be back soon. So while he's gone, she's in the office, continuing to do her jewelry thing. And Aurora goes off again, right? And so she's looking, and at first she don't see nobody there. Now she messed me up with this part where I was like, "Girl, no, that's not what we do." Because of course she talking about some damn hello. I'm like, "No, girl, that's not what we do." And so she go out there and she's looking, even though she don't see nothing on the camera. And when she opens up the door, it's basically just like a little raccoon running away from the garbage out there. I said, I wanted to open the door. If I ain't seeing nothing on the camera, then, what would be the point of me opening the door? And so then she goes back in and is saying motion at the door again as she's brushing her teeth. Now this time is an old man outside her door, and he's just basically keeps saying, "Hello, Jocelyn, open the door. I need to talk to you. I need to speak to you." She's asking him what do he want, and he was like, "Please, I need to see you. Open the door, open the door." So, of course, she's like, "You need to leave." Okay, she's like, "I'm going to call the police." And then, at this point, the person is banging on the door. They moving the doorknob and all of that kind of stuff. And he's saying, "It's cold out here." He was like, "Please open the door for me." And he's saying, "You don't need to send the police." But she does call the police, and she tells them to get here immediately. So now, the police come or whatever. Her husband gets home from work, and he's seeing all the cop cars outside. So he's running in, asking her if she's okay or whatever. And they're asking her, what happened. And she's telling them and all of that. And she's like, she never saw this man before. He just kept banging on the door. And so, she's letting her husband know that she's okay. And he was saying, "Thank God, we installed that stupid thing." And so all of a sudden this neighbor comes, and he's like, knock knock, saying that he lives next door. And he says, "Well, I was talking to Frank across the street, and he told me what happened." He's like, "I have security cameras that's up too, and there's one of them that's pointed in the direction of your house. So we could go ahead and look and see if it spotted anything." So now when he's playing the video on their TV and the cops and all of them are looking, it's not showing nothing. He was like, "You said this incident happened about an hour ago." She's like, "Yeah." So she was like, "Well, I'm going to speed ahead a little bit." So they see the part when she came out, and when the raccoon was there, whatever. But then they still going more, and they don't see nothing. But all of a sudden they see the cops there. So of course now everybody thinks she's crazy. She was like, "I don't get it. Where is he? Are you sure that this is the right tape?" And they like, "Yeah, well, they gotta be the right tape because we seen the part of the raccoon that you said, and then we see the cops. So this is it." And so of course the cops is like saying, well, nothing is showing up on your Aurora. It didn't show up on his camera either. They was like, maybe you just really stressed. You know, at one point, her husband was saying, was it a dream or something? She was like, I know the damn difference between when I'm dreaming and when I'm awake. She was like, it was real and I'm not making this up. So, you know, they just basically tried to put in nicely, like, well, we have the description. We're going to feed it in the system. Is really not nothing else we could do but see if it matches some of the other cases that's out there. And it was like, at this point, just go on with your lives, lock the door, be careful, and if he does come back, then call us again. And so they go ahead, you know, and of course, like I said, her husband looking at her like he crazy because he already knows that she has some previous issues. So then in the middle of the night while they laying there, he's like, you know, I don't want you to get mad at me, but I think the police may have had a point. And he was like, you know, you've been under a lot of stress. You're starting a new business. We're in a new place. You know, it's a lot. It's even a lot on me with my new position. So he was like, you know, that can't be helping at all. And on top of it, what happened to you when you was a kid? So he's like, you know, do you think you might want to start seeing somebody again? And she was like saying how she still can't stop seeing that, you know, guy that broke in her house when she was a kid with that rabbit mask on, that every time she opens her eyes, she's seeing him in front of the bed and, you know, seeing her parents tied up with ropes over their mouths. So, of course, like I said, he's asking her if she want to maybe talk to somebody again. And she's saying no, she don't think so, and that, you know, he have to be right. And maybe it just was a dream that she had. And so he was like, okay, cool, you know. So, you know, we get to the next day, and now her husband is telling her that he put out some poison for the raccoons. And she like, poison? You gonna poison him? And he was like, yeah, he's basically, you know, just a big rat. And he was like, he's making a mess everywhere, all around the neighborhood, not just here. And so she's like, okay, so he deserves to die for that? She talking about something, he's really cute. I said, girl, what? So he was like, look, I ain't the first one to ever, you know, do this. So the next thing you know, the bell is ringing again. Is the man again at the damn door. But this time, the husband is there to witness it too. He's seeing and hearing it too, because at one point when she was like, it's him, and he was like, the raccoon, she was like, no, the guy, and she gave him the phone. I thought maybe it was going to be a situation where only she sees him. So he was like, that's really him. And she was like, yeah, it wasn't a dream. So he's like, hey man, get away from my door. What do you want? You know, what are you doing here? What do you want? And the man is just continuously saying that he needs to see Jocelyn. He needs to talk to her. He has something to say to her. So I'm like, well, first of all, I would want to know how the hell he know my name. You know, he keeps saying, please open the door, that he have to see her. And her husband is just continuously saying, get away from the door. So at one point, he went and grabbed like the fire poker from by the fireplace and was like, if he was going to go out there to hit him with it. And she was telling him, stop, stop, stop. Don't open the door. She was like, something really weird is happening. So he calls the neighbor, and he basically says to the neighbor, you know, that damn guy from yesterday is back over here. And the neighbor, you know, he tells him, can he check his security cameras? And the neighbor's like, I don't see nothing. I'm staring at your door right now. And so he was like, what's going on? You guys are okay or what? So he was like, yeah, no, we fine. So she was like, well, why the hell would you tell him that we fine? And he was like, he's saying he looking at the cameras and he don't see nothing. And when she looks down at her phone, she don't see him no more either. She's like, he's gone. So he's like, what? And he go and he open the door and he look out there, and of course he don't see anything because she was ready to call the cops again. So he was like, I know what this is. He was like, God damn it, I don't know why I didn't think about this before. And she's like, what? He was like, think about it. This is freaking, you know, an app. We got Wi-Fi, whatever. They are basically hacking into it. And that's what's going on. You know, somebody's hacking and playing games. He was like, I'm pretty sure it's a prank. And if you look up, you know, Google, Aurora hacks, you're probably gonna see a whole bunch of stuff happening. So she was like, no, I heard his voice through the door and the knob was turning and was banging or whatever. How the hell do you explain that? And he was like, I don't know, but that's the only explanation that makes sense, and I'm sure this happens to people all the time. So he was like, you know, okay, you know, pretty much that's what it gotta be. So meanwhile, she looks it up, and it was like he might as well not have even told her to look it up, because she actually starts seeing, you know, more and more people that's putting up these things where people are saying all different kind of crazy stuff to them. And she, one of the videos she was watching, she was like that, you know, they kept not seeing anybody, but then someone was eventually arrested that looked just like him. And so she was saying that something had just came to her, whatever, because she was like, the person that was arrested was on a sex offenders registry. So he talking about some stop it, okay? He was like, now you know, getting obsessed with this. He said he changed all the passwords and, you know, everything should be good now. And he was like, if she have any more visitors, he'll give her a blowjob. So she like, really? He was like, well, I'll give you something else. So she said something just came to her mind that, you know, she just realized and thought about it. And so he was like, what? And she was like, you know, back in high school or whatever the case may be, it was this janitor that used to be at there. And she said one day she had basically said, you know, his name was Mr. Hendricks, and she had, you know, he was always strange and talking to himself or whatever. And she said hi to him once, and he was like, you know, good morning, just trying to make her friends laugh, and had told him that he looked nice. And she said he took her seriously. She was like, after that, he would basically just be, you know, kind of all about her and following her, smiling at her, looking at her. You know, he put candy in her locker. He basically came and like polished her desk and all this different kind of stuff. And she was like, he would leave these little love notes that would say, to my sweet Jocelyn. Now that's what the guy was saying when he was, you know, knocking at the door, that he needs to speak to his sweet Jocelyn. She was like, then all of a sudden he was gone. And it was some kind of rumor that he had went into an institution. So he was like, that's the guy that you think is at the door? And she was like, I don't know. To my sweet Jocelyn, she was like, come on, what's the chances of that? That doesn't sound familiar to you. And he even looks like the guy. So he was like, before you were saying that you couldn't recognize him, but now all of a sudden you just recognized him. And she was like, yeah, it's been 20 years, but that popped in my head and I'm sure it's him. So of course, again, he's like, Jazz, stop it. You know, nobody was really at the door. And even if it does look like Mr. Hendricks, there's no way it could have possibly been him or whatever. And so, you know, pretty much just telling her it was a dumb prank and to leave it alone. That again, she's starting to obsess over this, right? And so he said he was going to go ahead and take a shower. So in the meantime, you know, it's nighttime again. She's there by herself. She's cleaning the jewelry again. And, you know, she's checking her phone every minute now to make sure, you know, that it ain't nobody out there. And when she lifts up her daggone laptop, basically she sees his reflection in it, and he talking about Jazz. Okay, it made her jump and scream, and it made me jump too. I was like, oh shoot, what the heck is going on here? So at this point, she don't want to keep bringing up to her husband because he's just basically making her seem like she crazy. So she drive on over to his sister's house, and she makes up this story about how, you know, she's trying to put together this reunion, and she wants to have all the staff and, you know, teachers and stuff like that come, you know, to the reunion, and that she wanted to invite him, you know, and that she was from the alumni association or whatever, and she couldn't find anything on him through the internet or social media, so she thought she would take a chance and come there. So the sister basically invites her in because she was saying, can you point me in the right direction? But the sister was looking at her kind of suspect. So then, you know, she's telling her how she wanted her to receive this invitation because she's inviting all the old staff and alumni. She's sure that they would be glad to see him, and she knows she would. And so the sister starts saying, well, I wish I could help you, but he disappeared a couple weeks ago. You know, he does that from time to time. And she was like, even when he was living there, he would be in his own world, you know, so it would pretty much seem like she should, you know, have been there by herself anyway. And she was like, when he left, he didn't say goodbye. And so she was asking her, like, you don't know, you know, where he is? And she was like, no. She was like, he, you know, like I said, even when he was there, he wouldn't be there, and that he was never the same ever since the school had fired him. And so she was like, it's probably the computer. So of course, you know, Jocelyn is perking up like, wait a minute, he's into computers, because, you know, especially what her husband's saying about them hacking and all of that. So she was like, yep, day and night. She was like, he will always be hunched over with these headphones on. You couldn't get him to talk or anything. So she was like, do you have any recent pictures of him? So she take her in the back to this creepy room. I didn't know if she was going to try to do something to her at first, but she was like, look down in this box. So when she picked the box up, it had like some toys and stuff at the top, but then there was a picture of him, and it did look just like the guy that kept coming to her on camera. So she was like, he never really was one for family photos, and that's the only picture she had. So now she calls her husband, and she's like, yeah, I'm sure of it. I went to the house because I had to make sure I wasn't crazy. This is the guy. His sister gave me a picture. She let me know that he was into computers, and he was like, what? He's into computers? He's like, yeah, so it had to be him. He was doing this hacking or whatever. So he was like, I'm going to give patrol all the information or whatever. And she's asking him when he's coming home, and he's like, he don't know, not for at least another hour. And he was like, basically telling her don't make nothing for him, and he love her, and he'll see her as soon as he get home. So now when she get in the house, the doors are knocking again, right? And it's him again, right? And so he's telling her, please let him in, please let him in. And she's like, if I let you in, what are you going to do? And he was like, nothing, He was like, I just want to talk to you. And she was like, you sure that's all you want? And he basically was saying, yeah. He was like, please stop being afraid of me and open the door. And so I guess she was just like, all right, let me get this over with, because this man is not going to stop coming. And, he was like, I just wanted to see you again. That's all. I had something important that I wanted to say to you. So she go ahead and open the door, but when she opened the door, again, it's like if he's not even there. So she come back in the house and close the door, and then all of a sudden he's standing in her damn living room. So of course this scares the hell out of her, and she screams, and he's like, again telling her she don't have to be scared, and he's like, thank you for opening the door for me. And so he was like telling her, he's sorry that he lied to her. So I'm like, oh Lord, what the hell, I'm saying, he gonna do now? So she was like, you lied to me. And he was like, yeah, I lied to you, and said that I just wanted to see you. He was like, that's not it. He was like, I also wanted to apologize to you. And she was, he says, I want more than that, and I want to apologize to you. So she was like, apologize for what? And so he basically was saying that he knows that, he put her through a lot in high school or whatever the case may be, and he scared her, and that he never intended to do that. And so he was like, I apologize for what I did to you in high school. I convinced myself that I loved you and all of this kind of stuff, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And so she basically was like, he told her he made her feel unsafe. And so he was getting ready to walk away after he said his apology. He was like, that's pretty much all I wanted to do. I just was here to say I'm sorry. And so when he was walking away, she was like, Mr. Hendricks, she was like, that's all you wanted? She was like, well, I want to apologize too. Maybe we both can forgive each other, because she basically was saying that her and her friends had made fun of him and stuff like that, and they were mean to him. And so once they both apologized to each other, he basically, like, blood started coming down, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then all of a sudden it was like, he had just turned to dust once she was like, maybe we could forgive each other, right? And just disappeared. So of course she not gonna want to tell nobody about this, because she like, they really gonna think I'm crazy. And the next thing she's seeing on the news where they're saying that his body was discovered floating south of the I-40, and that he was presumed to have taken his own life, and he had been missing for like 2 weeks. So her husband was coming in, and she hurried up and turned the TV off, and he was like, how was your day? And she was like, oh, it's good, it's coming along. And basically was saying, that she was just watching the news, and she hurried up and turned it off. And he was like asking her any more encounters, and she was like, nope, I guess you were right, because it's all quiet. And he was like, you see that, problem solved. So he was like, a little reboot, a little change of the password, and we all good. And so basically he got ahead to take his shower. So there's a motion at the daggone door again, all right? And he comes back to the stairs and was like, what is it now? And so there's a girl here this time, a lady, and she's basically saying, hello, hello. She was like, I don't know how I got here, and she was like, please, I'm scared. I don't even know who I am. And so, Jalen is like, well, who are you? What's going on? She was like, I was at the, park, Grace Park, and something happened to me there. I can't remember. And so, she was about to go open the door, but her husband gets in front of her and was like, whoever this is, you know what I'm saying, F off. He was like, get away from here. And he's cursing and going off. And he was like, you know, you could tell her to go somewhere else or whatever. We not playing no games with me. Do you understand? He was like, go whatever freaking basement you was in and die. So she was like, oh my God, don't say nothing like that. And then she looked and she's like, she's gone. And he was like, wait, she's gone. She's gone. And he opens the door. And again, she's not there. So this time he rips the Aurora off the door and was like, look, I know you want to be safe, but this is getting ridiculous. We got the security guards in the booth. That's good enough. And he throws the Aurora in the garbage. And so she looking at him and looking at the door, and she's just like, wait, what's going on here? So she decides to go over to the park, okay? She drives over to the park. She gets out, and there's actually a bench there with the girl's name on it or whatever, where they put up like a memorial for her. So she Googles her name and comes to find out it's saying that she died in a hit and run accident and that the, you know, driver's in jail or whatever the case may be. So she's like, well, you know, what was she coming to my house for or whatever, right? So now when she gets back home, she's telling her husband, like, you know, look at this, you know, and she's telling her how the lady that showed up was killed in a hit and run accident. Now she finally tells him the truth about Mr. Henderson and was like, you know, when I told you he never came back again, I lied. He did, and all he wanted to do was apologize to me. So he's like, all he wanted was to apologize. She's like, yeah. And then she was like, it have to be a reason why she showed up here. You had to know her in some kind of way, because it's not for me. When Mr. Henderson came, you know, he was coming for me or whatever. So she was like, tell me the truth. Who is she? You have to know her. It had to be you. She was coming from. So of course he's saying no, no, no. She also shows him this video where this guy online is basically saying that these Aurora cameras pick up like activity from spirits, basically, right? That, you know, there's a light that these ghost hunters use. So of course he's laughing at that, and he's like, why are you showing me these insane people? This is not possible. I don't even know how you could believe some crap like that. And she's like, well, Mr. Henderson, you know, came or whatever and apologized to me, but then I seen him on the news and he basically was dead and had already been dead for weeks. And so, you know, she was like, she did research and this had been happening to other people or whatever. So she's like, you know, telling him to just watch it. But of course, like I said, he's laughing at it. So of course, right in the middle of them talking, you know, we have this ringing again, and we have the person back there again, you know. And so she was like, so do you want to tell me who Mary Jean was? And he kept saying, I don't know, I don't know. She was like, okay, you didn't kill her. The person that killed her is in jail. So what does she want from you? He keeps saying he don't know who she is and he don't believe in ghosts. And she was like, well, you know, he wanted to tell her it's utterly disappointing that she would let this disrupt their lives. And so all of a sudden the ringing starts again, and he's like, what is that? And she was like, oh, that's the Aurora. And she's back again. She was like, I basically put it back up. Yeah, it was cracked, but it still worked, because remember, he threw it in the trash. And she was like, now, do you want to tell me again who she is? Now, at this point, she's basically like, you know, saying for them to open the door. And she was like, you gonna keep telling me you don't know? She was like, okay, then I'll ask her then. So he gonna talk about, I don't know what she wants. He was like, who is she? Who is she? Tell me already. So baby, he started talking about she was my fiance. Okay, I didn't want to say nothing or whatever the case may be. She's like, what? And he was like, yeah, she was my fiance. We were supposed to get married, but I called it off. And he was like, I should have told you sooner, but I really just didn't know how to even say it. I never had the words. So he's claiming that, you know, the night she was killed, they was at the park. It was a place they like to go. And he had basically broken off with her. And he was like, there was probably a million reasons, but he just wasn't ready. And he didn't think she was the one, all right? So he was like, she got angry and she told him that she never wanted to see him again and that she would walk home. And he basically drove off and left her there. So he was saying that it haunted him, and, you know, he felt bad or whatever. You know, it haunts him every day. And so he was like, you know, after that, he ended up getting a good job and moving on. And I guess meeting her, and that was that. So she's like, well, she probably wants to forgive you, and he's talking about something. I don't think so, right? So she's still standing outside, and at this point she starts saying, please, Bryce, let me in, don't be afraid. So basically she was like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and open the door and see what she wants. So when she opened the door again, is nothing there, right? And then she goes back in, and so Bryce is basically like, she's gone, and she's like, no, Bryce, she's not gone. So when he looked, she's standing there in the house, but not only is it her, she's holding a baby in her arms as well. And she's like, look at him, Bryce, he was going to be your son. So I'm like, what? So, of course his wife is like, what is she talking about? And she was like, the lady Mary, whatever the holding the baby, was like, tell her, Bryce. So he talking about she was pregnant. He was like, oh man, I'm so tired, or whatever the case may be. He was like, look, she was pregnant, and there was no way that, we was going to be able to have a baby or whatever. I had to do something. So I'm like, well, what did you do, Bryce? Okay, we getting deeper into this now. He talking about something. What was I supposed to do? So, he says he couldn't let that happen. So now we go back and we see that they was arguing back and forth, and she got out the car and he was asking her where she going, and she was like, what are you doing? Because he was grabbing her and he was telling her, we have to end this now. And she was like, end this. She was like, you hurting me. So now she did get hit by the car, and the car did go off. So that part of the story was true. And he want to look around and be like, help, 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 when he see that it's damn black and ain't no other cars around, right? But he left out the part where she was still basically alive on the floor, and he went and stepped on her damn neck, baby, and finished her damn off, okay? And so he was saying that, he had to do what he had to do with her, and now he gonna have to do what he have to do, with this wife he have now, Miss Jocelyn. And so when he went to swing this damn fire poker at her, thinking he was gonna kill her, honey, then he started just choking, blood started coming everywhere out of him. And his wife told him, you're right, Bryce, she's not here to forgive you. Basically the same thing that happened to the man earlier, Mr. Hendricks, happened to him. And then she was left there by herself. He disappeared, the lady and the baby disappeared, and it was just her. So after this happened, she go ahead and she moved into her new place, and this man is telling her that he installed all her stuff. So he was like, and I took the liberty of installing the Aurora too. She was like, nobody told you to do that. He was like, yeah, it came in, with the building contract. He was like, it keeps the insurance rates down. So as soon as he walk away, honey, here goes the damn Aurora connecting, and it's telling her that there's motion there. And now it's Bryce banging at her damn door, and he telling her how, he's never going to leave her. He's her husband. He's always going to be coming around, and all this different kind of stuff. So now she got him freaking knocking at the daggone door. Okay, but I doubt Bryce is coming in to talk about some I'm sorry, or, apologizing to her. Now, I didn't think it was going to go that way. For some reason, I thought it was going to maybe connect something with Queenie with American Horror Stories or something. Story. But she was telling him, F off, and he was like, I can't do that. He was like, I gave you my word that I was going to be with you for life, and we have a plan. And he was like, just let me in, and just basically kept banging at the door and saying, open the door, and telling her she's his wife, and she have to answer to him. Do she understand him? And so that basically was how the episode ended, you guys. So y'all put it in the comments. Let me know, what did you think about this episode too? Okay. Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did you see where it was going? All right. Put it in the comments. Let's discuss. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you are so inclined. Till next time. Toodaloo.